Welcome once again, folks, to another session of Let's Chat with me, Meor Addelan. Now, today we are going to be talking about a very, very serious thing that is happening a lot more than one could have imagined here in Malaysia. We're going to be talking about suicide. Yes, it is a very serious topic. It is a very serious situation that we are having right now because the fact that right now the numbers have been growing, unfortunately, due to the fact that we're living in this current new normal due to the pandemic. And to discuss more about this serious topic that we have a very special guest. Ladies and gents, let me introduce to you Dr. Ravi. To start things off, maybe you can share with us a bit of your experience in handling such cases, the fact that you are a psychiatrist. Can you share with us general information that you can share with our audience?
We have done research in high-income countries. That's a person who dies by suicide, about 135 people are affected by it. That's quite a number, and that's actually a high-income country. We're not really sure how many more or people are affected in closer-knit communities, such as our Asian communities. All right. So before I go all about the numbers, we're all going to talk about something that's a bit difficult. If you are struggling with suicidal thinking, maybe what would be good is that you get some help, and maybe you can get some links online, or maybe you can look it up, talking to befrienders. Let's talk about numbers. Numbers are often something that everybody wants to talk about. Everybody wants to know what is the suicide rate. In some countries, we have very good surveillance systems where you get yearly rates, you get very frequent rates, but with all honesty, it's not the same everywhere. Reason being, it's not just a system in place, it's also the problem where collecting information about suicide is very difficult. People don't want to talk about it if it happens. The last numbers we have is of 2009, now when the National Suicide Registry was active. It's about 6.2 per 100,000 population. It was very much higher in men, 8.7, versus women, which is about 3.7, if I'm not 3 point something, which I'm not really, it shows a great disparity. But that's sort of like the trends. You have men do die by suicide more than women. The numbers are such. There is a reason why I would not want to say what's the numbers now. It's quite speculative because there's a big amount that's underreported, not reported, and sometimes when we overreport it, it's also not correct as well. And what we do get, you read papers, you see police reports and all of that. These numbers are not truly completely reflective of the whole picture. So we're looking at a number that's about 5 to 6 per 100,000. The thing about this number, which I just like to share, is that the quality of the data is also, when WHO did their list, they made a list of the suicide rates across the world in 2016. It's not really of high quality as well. And that again also comes to the fact that how many people are willing to, whether systems are in place. We're not talking about systems being in place in very big cities, but also systems being able to capture things where people do live in quite remote places, all of that data, and then whether people want to talk about it, you report about it, then only we can capture the data. These things are there, so we gotta contend with the fact that we don't really know, and that's actually in fact the situation.
Yes, granted, the numbers may not be as genuine as it is. Again, there might be plenty of other cases which are not reported when it comes to suicide, but there's no denying the fact that you tend to hear more and more cases of suicide attempts or suicide deaths that are happening in Malaysia within the past 1 or 2 years. Is that correct?
Yep, because suicide news is newsworthy. It's really important to recognize that it's something that will get reported, and especially as if it happens in a place that is public, or if it is known, or if it's especially if it's a public place, it becomes a matter of public interest, so it is reported. And whatever stories that are reported are also incredibly sad, because some of you get a lot of backstory and all of that. So we seem to be hearing more of this. It may or may not indicate rising rates, but the fact is we hear about it means that it's something that we should tackle.
Does this mean that the mental health state, or at least problems that arises in these victims, in these suicide attempters, is it just the fact that they just can't cope with life that easy anymore? Because it's just happening more and more often? Is it just because of pressure? Is it just because of lack of confidence?
When we did a national health survey, when we did it in 1996, and when we repeated it about in 2015, the numbers grew. We went. I think that made a lot of news. Every third person or a adult third person is having a mental health problem. Not necessarily a mental health diagnosis. I think that's quite important to make a clear difference. Suicides don't happen because of one cause. There are many vulnerabilities in a person. It's not to say if you die by suicide, you have a mental illness. In countries like ours, lower middle income countries, it's quite important to note that most suicides do not actually need to occur in the presence of a severe untreated mental illness or severe mental illness, or even a common mental illness. It could actually occur independently without a mental illness, but a lot of vulnerabilities. When we say the word vulnerabilities, we are looking at people who are going through very overwhelming life problems. Financial problems are one, interpersonal problems, relationship problems, so many other social adversities. And if we can look at it we can just look at it in the last 10 years, the way we live has quite well changed. I'm not saying it certainly has, but that could actually be contributing to the way that things are going on about as well. And the same pressures that existed about 10, 20, 30 years ago, they do exist, but they exist in a different form, in the sense that if we talked about bullying, if it happened about 20 years ago, now it can actually happen online. It's different. It's very different. Life, we have become very alone in a very connected world, in a very enmeshed and quick world, a world that is it's easy to get an opinion on anything actually now. Validation comes very quickly. Invalidation comes quickly as well. So you do get that the world is changing, and I think that could probably talk about what is actually going on. And we seem to get more influences. You don't go completely isolated. What happens anywhere else can affect you now much more than it used to than before.
Funny you should mention about bullying, because again, unfortunately as well, there have been cases, sensationalized cases. There are plenty of teens out there who unfortunately are going through this traumatic session of themselves wanting to commit suicide because they think that there's nothing else that can be done. You hear about them wanting to commit suicide because being heartbroken, not able to actually pass an exam, or even, as you said, bullying as well. I mean, all of these things did happen before. I did get a heartbreak when I was in my teens. I was bullied when I was a child and everything, but I'm blessed that I'm able to come out from this better. But what's the problem with kids nowadays? Is it just a problem that nobody is foreseeing, nobody is able to anticipate? Are the parents to blame?
Young people, when we're looking at young people, we are looking at children and adolescents. We're looking at somewhere people below under 18. They have a unique set of risk factors compared to adults. They have all these pressures, this peer pressures, the academic pressures, or the perceived academic pressures, thinking they're not doing enough. Then there's new things that have come up, since cyberbullying has come up. And in addition to that, they also live in a world where they have a lot of media exposure as well, more than what the previous generation did. We have something called as OTT, that people get exposed through social media. Those things are new. Those things are new. The cyberbullying is new. That thing is new. All factors exist. And again, I may be repeating myself. They have emerged in a new form. But when it comes to parents, I would not want to put blame on them, because it's very important. Suicides are not caused by one factor alone. It's also challenging for parents to parent children these days, or young people these days, because of all these influences. They may play a part, but they also could be I wouldn't want to put a big chunk on them. It's not just all their fault as well. And then another thing is, since we spoke about this, trauma happens also. Trauma is something, there's a lot more people traumatized because of displacement. People can be traumatized because of abuse, which now can happen in many ways. We have seen a lot more reading about abuse that happens and there's a lot more awareness as well. That's why we can pick this up. But there's a lot of abuse as well that can happen, especially sexual abuse and that whatever that happens through online. And we've recently read something about people using messenger platforms to abuse people and all of that. So all of it is larger on these children, on these young people, and then to parent people who are trying to parent someone who are living in a very fast changing world. They're changing and changing, and it's not easy to parent, especially when your child gets different influences. So there's a whole mismatch going on as well. So yeah, it's a lot of things working together at the same time. I wouldn't say I wouldn't want to go too far to label them as less resilient. I would say they face a lot more. So how much fast can they catch up?
How is it that we as human beings, we as Malaysians in general, should act or should lead our lives better in order for us to curb this phenomenon, this problem that is happening, unfortunately? What can we do, Doc?
It's everybody's business to prevent suicides. It's not just a matter that sits within health or mental health. It's everybody's business. It starts from the person and goes all the way up to the health system and the country. If you are looking just at systems, there's certain things that make suicide prevention very difficult. If you have access to lethal means, meaning poisons are sold without regulation or things like that, or substances that people can hurt themselves, or access to people to hurt themselves are available. Those are not really good things. Those things, there should be some legal part of that. Then there's also the criminalization of suicidal attempts. That is really found to be highly counterproductive. So decriminalizing suicides can do a lot in helping people to come forward and share their struggles without fear of persecution. The media and the way media behaves is also important, because suicidal portrayal through stories, as well as how they are reported, often bring a lot of influence, especially to young people. So those things are things that we can do. If we talk about methods in the media, we talk about people's experience, people's names, and all. Don't respect privacy. That becomes very triggering and very traumatizing to survivors and people who may share that experience. And as a person, we sort of also, now let's just come down, let's go zoom to ourselves. If we are struggling, it's okay to get help. It's not weakness. It's certainly not weakness. When you are getting such thoughts that, it's really difficult, life is being very hard to go on, it's very situations seem hopeless, you sort of not realize that's your mind and body telling you need help. It's okay to get help. I normally there's this picture. If you look at suicide prevention, you see someone holding a person off a ledge. Standing at a ledge is very, very, very difficult. Standing at a cliff like that, they'll normally lift someone up. That's that sort of usual image. Being at that cliff is so difficult. It's so difficult to hold on to just being at the cliff. You're doing really hard. You're not weak. Just get help. It takes a lot of courage to get help. And if you see someone, be that person that offers that hand. Be okay about talking about it. Talking about suicide is not going to give people ideas of dying by suicide or ideas of people trying to hurt themselves or anything. It just has it looks like you're down. You look like you're going through a lot. Sometimes people may think that life may not be a point of living. You want to talk about, do you think that's something same for you? And start a conversation and bring them to get help. There's access to help now is so much better than what it was. We have many health clinics. We have hospitals. We have counselors. We have access to helplines. A lot more that is there. That's something that we can do. Is sort of like painted the whole from top to bottom part of it, from the very system that we live in to the place where it is. And of course, there are other things as well we can do, which we can improve is in our education. We can also improve in supporting suicide prevention activities as well. So that's about that. Also, investment in manpower, all kinds of things. It takes a whole systems approach.
Of course. I mean, a lot of people need to just wake up and just be together and try to help one another, because, we live in a community. You're not living by yourself. It's always okay to talk to someone. It's always okay to open up to someone, because then this will help ease whatever problems that person may have. And most probably it will just calm you down and make you a better person, more enlightful person at the end of the day. Dr. Ravi, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Really insightful, really on point when we talk about this serious matter about it's not the end of the world. I hope that we are able to spread more love to the society, as well as just helping out in any way that we can. Thanks, Doc. Thank you for coming on to the show. All right, folks, that was Dr. Ravi talking to us about the suicidal cases in Malaysia. And please, guys, do not be alarmed. Do not be disheartened. If you are in a predicament, if you feel lonely, call for someone. If you do not know anyone, just call the befrienders. You just can check them online, or just, open up to someone, because again, the little things that you can do will make the biggest difference. Meor Addelan here. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Hope to see you guys again on the next one. Take care now. Bye bye.